for? Come on, Ari, Rachel whined. It was your idea to go out. You can't flake on me now. Ariana relaxed back onto her bed and closed her eyes. Yeah, I know, but I changed my mind. I don't feel like going out now. Not all the way back over to Fifth Avenue. Maybe we should just go to that little noodle bar on the corner and get some food from there. Rachel stuck out her bottom lip. But you made this bar sound cool, and now I really want to see it. You can't just warm a girl up and then flip the switch off. Like you haven't been revved up with nowhere to go before. I have, by you, and it wasn't any good then either. I'm all settled here now though. Ariana's tone indicated her reluctance. She couldn't admit outright that she was regretting opening her mouth. What if the barman wasn't there anyway? Worse, what if he was? The bed has accepted me into its loving arms and isn't willing to let me go. Unless you're planning on having your longest lasting relationship be with a slab of foam, I think it's time for you to socialise a little. Rachel grabbed Ariana's light pink jacket and threw it at her face. Ariana caught the garment seconds before the leather smashed into her nose. I socialise every day. You socialise with canvas and speak in paint. You could use some time out with real people who don't talk in colours. Ariana turned her head to the side and caught one of the paintings she had made the night before, one that contained the essence of the hot barman's eyes. When she'd invited Rachel for a night out, she hadn't really thought the idea through properly. She was far better off just trying to forget her muse. She needed to forget him. What was her other option? Stalk him in the bar day after day? She needed her life to stay as it was, fun, but with a focus on her study. She needed to paint and to relax. The decision to have a night out had been a whim. If she'd just acted then, instead of allowing herself to come home, she'd have been in the bar having a good time already. But now she wanted to stay in and relax into the work she had to get done. The longer she stared at her failed attempt at capturing his likeness, though, the more the desire to get it right grew in her. Please, Ari, I've been waiting a long time to go out with my wing woman. Ariana rolled her eyes. You turned 21 a month ago. That's forever to a 21-year-old. She sat up and grabbed a brush to run through her hair. Okay, I'll go. But I'm taking my sketchbook with me. Rachel grinned in victory. I wouldn't expect anything less. When Ariana stood to fix her hair and makeup, Rachel sat on the bed where Ariana had been during their discussion. Ariana was just applying a light sheen of nude-coloured gloss when Rachel exclaimed, "What's that?" Rachel leapt to her feet and raced to one side of the room. Ariana grimaced as she realised what had caught her friend's eye. The paintings. Too late to be stopped, Rachel lifted up the canvas that was at the front of the small pile. Is this the result of your inspiration? Ariana felt the heat rising in her cheeks. She hated her art being viewed when she didn't deem it ready. Yeah, but it's not very good. Are you kidding? It's great. Look at the depth and shadow you've got here. It's almost lifelike. Ariana shrugged into her jacket. It's not lifelike enough. Since when have you been concerned about lifelike at all though, Miss Abstract? I don't know. I just got inspired. Her lips turned up a little. And who is he? Ariana's eyes snapped to Rachel's. She hadn't expected her friend to guess so quickly that the inspiration wasn't entirely from within. Did she want to admit the truth? She'd probably have to eventually, but that didn't mean she couldn't stall a little, have a few more hours without relentless teasing. Who is who? Oh, come on, it's obviously a guy's eye. Who is he? No one, just some guy I saw. Rachel narrowed her eyes. You're really not going to tell me? There really isn't anything to tell. I fell. He helped. I left. End of story. No, not end of story. Clearly you haven't been able to get him out of your mind since. Ariana shrugged, trying to downplay the way he had taken over her artistic eye and sent her libido into overdrive. What can I say? He was pretty hot. Besides, I only met him yesterday, and I don't even know if I can really say that I met him. Come on, let's start walking and you can tell me all about it on the way. Slipping her sketchbook into her bag, Ariana nodded. She supposed the conversation was unavoidable now. Sure thing, but there's really not much to tell. A little over 20 minutes later, they were pushing through the simple black door and into the thrum of the bar beyond. "This place is great," Rachel said, talking over the music. "I thought it would be," Ariana replied without thinking. "Thought it would be? Didn't you say you'd been here before?" Although Ariana had filled Rachel in on Mr. Hot Stuff on the way over, she hadn't told her that he worked at this bar. She hadn't particularly wanted to suffer the relentless teasing she'd get from Rachel if she admitted that much. Yeah, but only before it opened. Rachel's grin grew and her eyes filled with mischief. This is where inspiration struck, isn't it? Ariana couldn't fight her smile, even as she held out her hands and shrugged. "Do you think he'll be here tonight? Oh my God, this is a scouting mission, isn't it? That's why you wanted to bring your sketchbook." Rachel nudged Ariana's shoulder. "You're so shady." "I don't even know if he'll be here." She hoped he would be, just as much as she feared he might. Would he recognise her? Want to know more? Run screaming in the opposite direction because he thought she was insane for disappearing so fast without a thank you? "You're still shady." "Let's get a booth so you can tell me more." "There's literally nothing more to..." Ariana had only taken 2 steps when she saw him. He was behind the bar, wearing a black, long-sleeve business shirt, red tie, and winning smile. He chatted and flirted with everyone lined up, waiting to be served. The thing that stole her attention most, though, was the way he tossed bottles and shakers back and forth through the air like a complete pro. The image of the bottles in near constant motion stirred something inside of her. She stared as the sight blurred in her mind until she could almost see the abstract image she would create from that inspiration. The swirls of colour, the black centre, the flow of the paint across the canvas. Movement. That's what she was missing in her thesis piece. The passion the lecturer wanted to see. "I need to get this down before I lose it," she murmured before rushing to the booth. Almost the instant she was seated, her sketchbook was out in front of her and she was sketching a rough outline of a new design for her piece. "He's really something," Rachel said, craning her neck to keep her eyes fixed on the bartender. "Uh-huh," Ariana agreed without looking up from her page or considering what she was admitting to Rachel. Those arms. His eyes, Ariana sighed, glancing up at him again. "You're so hopeless," Rachel said. So fucked, Ariana thought as she stared at him through the crowd. The mystery goth was still playing in Hennessy's mind as he served drinks to the early stream of customers. The crowd was filled with many familiar faces. That was what he loved about Cecilia's. So many repeat customers. It made for a better atmosphere, especially because it meant he could spend less of his night carding everyone. Student nights were great for an injection of cash, but terrible for the flow of getting drinks out when he had to stop to check the details of half the patrons. His section of the bar was lined up 3 deep, and he'd finally been able to turn his thoughts away from the enigmatic goth chick when he started seeing her face on other girls in the place, on one girl in particular. She sat in one of the booths that lined the walls, her head bowed as she focused on something on the table. As similar as she was to the girl he wanted to see, she was the antithesis in almost every way. Rather than black on grey, this one wore a pastel pink leather jacket over a dark pink blouse and a pair of dark blue jeans. She had a head of hair that seemed to include all the colours of the rainbow. It was pulled into a high ponytail that spilled down her head before curling at her nape. All of her features were the ones that had haunted his dreams, though. "Excuse me," a well-dressed woman snapped her fingers in front of his face, drawing his attention away from the girl in the booth. Hennessy dropped his gaze onto her and was about to open his mouth when he was interrupted by someone walking up to him behind the bar. At first, he thought perhaps Kylie, one of the other bartenders, had come to report an issue, but a quick glance and a flash of bleached blonde hair confirmed his worst nightmare. If you spent a little less time daydreaming and a little more time on the paying customers, this place wouldn't be in so much trouble. Camilla hissed the words from where she stood less than 2 feet away. He hadn't even seen her come in and wished she'd leave already. Her hands were curled into fists and pressed against her hips as she stared at him. She pursed her lips so tight it looked like she'd been sucking on a lemon wedge. Ignoring her, he spun back to the customer. "What'll it be, Gladys?" She smiled at him now that she had his attention. "Surprise me." His smile grew in response. He loved the customers who were willing to put their faith in him to come up with a drink just for them. Gladys was one of the best, even if her nasal voice did border on obnoxious on occasion, especially as she grew drunk and became loud and boisterous. "What base do you want?" he asked, running through the list of cocktails she'd approved of and the ones she'd seemed less impressed with. "Why don't you guess?" She leaned forward, and the angle left her cleavage on full display. Hennessy doubted it was unintentional. Gladys might have been over twice his age, but she'd been coming in for months and shamelessly flirting with him every time. He didn't mind though, because she was one of the best customers there was. She rarely complained, at least so long as she was served fast enough. She tipped well, and she usually brought at least a dozen friends into the bar with her. He reached for the bottle that bared his name. "A little bit of this?" "Got it in one. I've always told the girls how much I love Hennessy in my mouth." She cackled as her friends around her all burst into laughter and made mock protests over her being so crass. As if they hadn't been there with her before as she'd cracked similar jokes. As if they hadn't eyed his arms, ass and eyes in the past. He knew he wasn't bad looking. In fact, he relied on his looks to earn the extra money. After a bit of thought into the cocktail he'd give Gladys, Hennessy leaned closer and waggled his eyebrows. "How about we slip between the sheets?" The question was cursory. He already knew she'd have whatever he offered, providing it wasn't one she'd vetoed before. He threw some ice into the cocktail glass to chill it and scooped some more into a Boston glass to build the cocktail. "That sounds divine," Gladys enthused. Using a little of the working flair he was known for, he grabbed each bottle and poured the various measures into the shaker before squeezing half a lemon on top. He then slipped the metal shaker onto the top of the glass and gave the mixture a shake to chill all the ingredients. Gladys and her guests all focused their eyes on him, and he gave a little show while shaking the drink. A few of them buried their teeth into their lip, and 1 or 2 shifted in place. Something told him he'd be mixing a few more between the sheets before the night was out. At least one for each of the women. He dumped out the ice that had been chilling the glass and strained the drink as he poured it from the shaker. Gladys pushed a 20 toward him, and he slid the drink to her. He waited for her to take the first sip before nodding at the appreciative way her tongue rolled over her lips. "Perfection, but I expected nothing less." Hennessy turned around to drop the money in the till and caught sight of Camille staring at him with her hands on her hips still. No doubt she had more complaints. How he hadn't served the drink fast enough, that he'd flirted too shamelessly, that he hadn't stuck to the list of approved recipes, the list his father had set. Hennessy knew all her petty quarrels and wasn't interested in hearing any of them. He rolled his eyes and spun back towards the customers lined up along the bar. "Ness, you—" "My name is Hennessy." He cut her off. The last thing he needed was to get into an argument with his stepmother in front of the clientele. He knew a statement that was sure to shut her down, and didn't feel an ounce of guilt as he spat it out. "Only my family gets to call me Ness." She huffed and turned on her heel to stalk away. No doubt there'd be hell to pay when his father found out, but with his words, Hennessy had earned himself an evening away from her judgmental stares, and that was worth any chewing out he might get later. Trying to push the thoughts of his stepmother out of his head, he served a few customers. "He's looking at you, you know." Rachel's voice rang in Ariana's ear. Ariana's head shot up. "What?" "He was looking this way." Rachel seemed about 2 seconds away from bursting into full squealing teen mode as she nudged Ariana's side. "He was staring straight at you." "It's probably the hair." Ariana tried not to be obvious as she glanced over toward the bar. When she found him, he was deep in conversation with a cougar, and they were clearly having a good time together. How did Blondie feel about his flirting? Everyone stares at the hair. Sure. Rachel didn't sound at all convinced as she dragged the word out. That must be what it is. Ariana's gaze found the side of the barman's face. He frowned, deep in concentration, as an older lady with bleached blonde hair stalked away from him. I'm going to get a drink. You want something? Sure, Ariana said. What do you want? Rachel was already moving when she asked the question, no doubt planning on getting Ariana another of whatever Rachel was drinking. Surprise me, Ariana shouted after her. After getting out as much of the abstract image as she could, including a list of the emotions the movement of the man behind the bar had evoked. If she could capture the feeling right, her thesis piece would shine. If not, she'd continue to disappoint herself and her creepy professor. Ariana flicked over to a fresh page and turned her attention to the bar, folding her legs beneath her ass so she could sit higher in the booth and get a better view through the crowd. God, he was inspiring.